the day sound disappeared from the world. Imagine waking up and realizing the world has stopped making sound. No wind, no footsteps, not even your own breath. This isn't history. It's a hypothetical ancient event told as if it happened thousands of years ago, passed down as a forbidden memory. The video never explains why sound disappeared. It explores what silence does to humans. People shouting, unable to hear themselves. Animals moving silently. Fires burning without crackle. People screamed until their throats bled and still heard nothing. Fear turns inward. People start doubting their own existence. Language loses meaning. Without sound, thoughts became louder. Introduce a strange belief. Speaking after the silence made it worse. So people, stop moving, stop communicating. Learn to exist without noise. Silence was no longer absence. It was law. After days, some people prefer it. Noise feels violent, sound becomes taboo. When sound returned, some people refused to listen. Ancient texts say the world returned to normal. Pause. But they also say, we've been quieter ever since. Ancient records say the world did not end with fire, or flood, or war. It ended quietly. No warning, no sky falling, no divine voice. Just a moment, ordinary and forgettable, when sound simply failed to arrive. A cup hit the ground. It should have shattered. It didn't make a sound. The first realization. People didn't panic at first. They laughed. They clapped their hands. They stomped their feet. Nothing answered them. The world had not gone deaf. It had gone silent. Waves touched the shore without rhythm. Birds opened their beaks without song. Fire burned politely. Even the heart felt suspicious, beating without proof. When humans tried to fight it, voices rose. People screamed names, prayers, commands. But without sound, language collapsed. Words only exist because they return to us. Some people shouted until blood filled their mouths, not because they were hurt, but because pain was the only thing they could still feel. The strange phenomenon. By the second day, something unsettling was noticed. Silence wasn't empty. It had pressure, like the air before a storm, but the storm never came. People described it differently. Thick, heavy, crowded. It felt as if the silence was listening. Animals knew first. Animals changed before humans did. Dogs stopped reacting. Horses refused to move. Birds stayed grounded. Predators hunted without urgency. Prey didn't run. Without sound, fear lost its direction. Nature didn't panic. It adapted. The first rule. An ancient text mentions a moment now called the agreement. No one knows who suggested it, but one by one, people began to understand. Trying to break the silence made it worse. Movement felt violent. Speech felt invasive. So they stopped. Stillness became safety. Cities slowed. Gestures replaced language. Eyes carried meaning words no longer could. The internal noise. As the world quieted, something else grew louder. Thoughts, memories replayed endlessly. Regrets sharpened. Time stretched. Without sound, the mind had nowhere to hide. Some people went mad, not from fear, but from clarity. The forbidden discovery. After weeks, a disturbing truth emerged. People who embraced silence, who didn't resist it, felt something close to peace. Noise, when imagined, felt crude, aggressive. Sound began to feel like a mistake. A few even wrote this: if sound returns, we should not. When sound came back, no ceremony announced it. One day, wind moved through trees, and people heard it. Some cried, some collapsed, some celebrated, but not everyone. A small group covered their ears. They had changed. Sound felt overwhelming. Voices felt violent. The world suddenly felt loud and careless. The after-effect history claims life continued as normal. But ancient scholars disagree. They point to simpler languages, shorter songs, fewer ceremonies, a fear of true silence. Something was lost and something was learned. The final warning. The last surviving inscription says this: "Silence once chose us, and we were not ready. If it returns, we may not survive it again." Perhaps the silence never left. Perhaps it's waiting. The silence came first. Not the peaceful kind. Not the kind that settles gently over a sleeping world. This silence was heavy. It pressed against the air, against stone, against memory itself. Long before calendars, long before borders, long before history decided where it would begin, there was a civilization that understood silence. They did not fear it. They listened to it. Their cities did not grow chaotically. They unfolded with intention. Streets aligned with the stars. Homes were positioned to follow the wind. Water flowed where it was meant to flow, never forced, never resisted. They believed disorder was a sign of ignorance. And ignorance, they believed, was the most dangerous force in existence. They called their world Aru, not a name, but a meaning. Aru meant balance. It meant knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. They were not the first civilization, and they knew they would not be the last. That knowledge shaped everything. The elders taught the children not with commands but with stories. Stories of cycles. Civilizations, they said, move like the stars. They rise, they burn bright, and eventually they collapse under their own weight. Not because of enemies, not because of nature, but because knowledge outpaces wisdom. When a society learns how to build before it learns why it builds, when it learns how to extract before it learns when to stop, collapse is inevitable. The elders spoke of earlier worlds, worlds swallowed by water, worlds burned by fire, worlds erased by storms that lasted generations. Each time, humanity survived, but each time, it forgot. That forgetting was the true catastrophe. Aru was different. They did not chase endless expansion. They did not worship growth. They worshiped continuity. Their scientists were philosophers. Their architects were astronomers. Their leaders were chosen not by force, but by restraint. The most respected individuals were not those who spoke the most, but those who spoke only when necessary. Records were kept, but never centralized. Knowledge was spread, intentionally fragmented, woven into architecture, art, music, and ritual. Because they understood one thing clearly: centralized knowledge can be destroyed. Distributed knowledge survives. They encoded mathematics into temples, astronomy into songs, history into geometry. Even if their language vanished, the truth would remain. At least, that was the plan. The first signs of imbalance were subtle. The stars shifted. Not dramatically, nothing the untrained eye would notice, but the astronomers of Aru noticed immediately. Patterns they had tracked for generations no longer aligned. It was not the stars themselves that changed. It was Earth's relationship to them. The elders gathered. They did not panic. They did not announce disaster. They listened to the wind, to the ground, to the silence between thoughts. And the silence spoke back. The cycle was approaching again. They debated for years. Some argued for preparation, build defenses, strengthen cities, store food, expand. Others argued this was the mistake of past civilizations. You cannot defend against a cycle. You can only move with it. The most radical voices proposed something unprecedented: disappearance, not extinction, not destruction, but withdrawal. To abandon the cities, to leave behind structures, knowledge, tools, to let the world reset without resistance, and to survive quietly. The idea was terrifying: a civilization choosing to vanish by choice rather than force. But history weighed heavily on them. They had studied the ruins of those who came before: massive cities reduced to stone skeletons, weapons buried beneath sand, towers toppled not by enemies but by time itself. Those civilizations fought the cycle. They lost. Aru would not repeat their mistake. The decision was not unanimous. It never is. Some could not accept abandoning what they had built. Some believed they could outsmart the cycle, control it, dominate it. Those voices grew louder. Technology advanced faster. Energy systems were pushed harder. Experiments crossed boundaries that once would have been unthinkable. The elders watched with quiet concern. They had seen this pattern before, in the ruins they studied. When fear replaces wisdom, speed replaces thought, and collapse accelerates. The final warning came not from the stars, but from the earth. The ground trembled in places it never had. Water behaved unpredictably. Magnetic instruments failed. Animals migrated in strange patterns. The planet itself was shifting. The elders called the Great Silence. For one full cycle of the moon, no announcements were made. No work was done. No decisions were enforced. The people listened, and in that silence many understood, not with fear, but with clarity. Preparation began quietly. There were no sirens, no mass evacuations. Families were instructed individually. Knowledge was passed in fragments, not instructions. Follow the river until it bends twice.